I generally hate architects. The more you look like an architect, the less good you are, in my opinion. The Swan Inn and they've got the big glasses. It's like a middle-aged man buying a sports car. It's just, you're making up for something there, my friend.
Mark Middleton is a British architect and the group managing partner at Grimshaw, one of the world's leading design practices. Mark steers the studio's global strategy and performance, drawing on more than 2 decades of leadership across complex rail, aviation and metro projects. Having led the London office for a number of years, he's now based in Sydney, leading the practice across its 8 studios worldwide, whilst championing growth, diversity and new ways of working. How you became sort of global head partner sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is it a natural progression?
It's a great question. It was an ambition. I think you're asked to do it. If your fellow partners show the faith in you, it's a role you're given and then you walk away from it.
How do you kind of encourage people to stay passionate about those monster projects that take a long time?
People's expectations should be calibrated correctly. I think to young people, it's always in stages. The design bit's in stages, the development's in stages. So you've just got to be active.
What is it about this career path that gets you going, coming back for more?
It's the people you meet, actually. When you're surrounded with good people, it makes you want to come into work every day, and walking around that spaces you create, the buildings you create is incredibly rewarding.
Mark, thank you for joining me, and especially all the way from Australia.
No, it's my pleasure, yes. Just happened to be here for a partner meeting and just fitted in. It's good to be back in London.
One question I like to ask all the guests on the podcast: why architecture? What is it about this career path that kind of gets you going, gets you, coming back for more?
Why? Well, I'll answer it in two ways, if that's all right. Why in the first place? Because all my family are tradesmen. They're all bricklayers and things like that, and plumbers and what have you. And I used to, my crush was playing in the sharp sound of a building site. But I worked out 2 things. One is I didn't want to do that job, but I also liked, building things and being involved in all that. So it was that, I was relatively good at drawing and naturally sort of went into architecture. I wanted a professional job. I didn't want to do the things that my dad, my uncles were doing. Then what keeps me going is the people you meet, actually. I mean, I know realising architecture is part of it, and walking around that, spaces you create, the buildings you create is incredibly rewarding. But really, in between that, there's a lot of conversation and a lot of getting on with people and collaborating, having ideas together, all of that sort of stuff. So when you're surrounded with good people, it makes you want to come into work every day and enjoy what you're doing. So I would say it's the people.
Just on those sort of early memories sitting in the sharp sand, what is it about that sort of experience of the kind of tangible nature of architecture? And it's something that lots of young architects fail to kind of experience in their early career, getting to site, getting that experience early on. What has that sort of taken you through, and having an understanding of how, maybe buildings come together and how the bits come together? How has that kind of like formed itself in your later career?
Yeah, I think I'm very practically minded as a result of it. I mean, I genuinely used to bring my toy soldiers along and play in the sharp sand, and they used to, in the 70s, they actually put dye in the sand to make it yellow. So I used to come back like a Simpsons character, I was completely sort of yellow, to be scrubbed clean by my mum. But also latterly, my dad did put me to work on, trying to teach me how to lay bricks, stuff like that, which I was just hopeless at. But I used to then take his tools and make dens and do all of those things. But I think that, so when I got into my architectural career, I actually worked at the Jubilee line for a period as an industrial designer, because I was very interested in things. I curated my career to get the job at Grimshaw's, actually, because I knew that they were into castings and metal processing and all forming and all that stuff. So I looked out a job to do that, and my writing style is my drawing style is very kind of graphic-y, so it was always good for details, and I always found myself being able to just sit down with a pad of A3 and just absolutely rattle through the details, which so building and the process of building was really there in the forefront of my mind. I don't do so much of that anymore now because my role's changed, but that's I really enjoy that, and the problem solving, putting these things together. And actually what it helps in the design, because when you're designing, and sort of younger architects are designing, I can immediately say, well, they're going to have trouble building that. You need to really think about, the building process, manufacturing, how that might help you into it. And I know it's a kind of probably what we do a lot of at Grimshaw, but I think it really does help. I think you should never be connected for it, and practices should be, taking students on a ride along. They should be going to sites and listening to the meetings, and that's why I think, it may be controversial, but things like work from home not necessarily good for young architects, because the incidental conversations you hear, the opportunities, do you want to come to site?
Completely.
They kind of miss those things. So I think you've got to be present and available, to get those opportunities. But I think it's absolutely essential for a young architect.
Yeah, I mean, we've had previous guests on the podcast where we've spoken about those sort of commonalities between, being in the office and having those conversations in an early career. So I think it is a common sort of agreement through a lot of people within the industry. So educated in Dundee, spent some time in Denmark.
Yeah.
And then worked in London.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that sort of early career at university.
I wanted to go to Dundee because it was one of the few architectural colleges that was in an art school, and I wanted to be surrounded by that a little bit more. Plus, it was a cheaper place to live. I sort of wanted to work in London, but I didn't want to necessarily study there. There's no shade thrown at anyone who wanted to study in London. I'm just those are my choices, and I was a terrible student up until I went to university. Very, boyish in the fact that I didn't put a lot of time into stuff, and I was kind of adjusted enough and all that. And then when I got to uni, a kind of penny dropped, and I treated the whole thing like a job. I remember I was in studio like 8 till 6 or 9 till 6, and I used to work like that all of the time. And I was that irritating student that I used to, like the first 2 weeks, when everyone's down the coffee bar and, getting drunk and not bothering to come in early, I was in the model shop making all the bases to my models, so that when we then got the final thing, it was all drawn then, it was no computers. When it was all put out, everyone would go, how the hell have you done all of those models? It's because I'd done them the first 3 weeks. I was very organised, but it changed me personally and my attitude to learning. But also I was thinking, I'm training for the job. The job's going to be like that. So that's what I did. I was lucky enough to go to Copenhagen for like an academic year, most of an academic year, on an Erasmus exchange, which unfortunately people can't do anymore. But that was really formative for me, because the students there, they designed in a totally different way. It was literally the Danish thing about light and how light enters it, and they did these big models and spent hours, on solar analysis and things like that, which was I found super interesting. Yeah. Just different sets of people. So I thought it's pretty lucky education. I think it was a good place, and in Dundee, there wasn't very much else for you to focus on, so you focused on your studies. So it was pretty good.
Very good. I think that's a fascinating thing. It is that sort of realization that lots of students, and I think me in particular, didn't come to realize until my part 2, was that thing about the production of information and like you say, just dreaming up ideas in the first part and then actually getting to work. But you're completely right. The way you actually practice architecture is, you go through that iterative sort of process. So it's a good skill to learn early on, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it, but I was intensely annoying to my fellow students because I had it all kind of sorted out. I did keep myself to myself as well. I think, actually, my only regret, really, I don't think I had enough fun. I think I should have had a bit more fun. But anyway,
So you joined Grimshaw in 1996.
Yeah. You've
been there for 29-ish.
Yeah, I'm in my 30th year. Yeah.
You're in your 30th year. What is it about? I mean, obviously you could ask hundreds of questions, but what is it about Grimshaw that's kind of, or the ethos of the practice, that's made you stay within that practice for the majority, if not all, of your career?
It's a great question, and it's not something I ever reflect on.
Yeah, of course.
Particularly. So, Grimshaw's were my favourite architects when I was a student, and I really wanted to work there. And when I didn't know this when I got there, because you think these things are all top down, and I know some practices are still like that. But with Nick, he was always very, throw your ideas on the table, fight for them. The most junior person could come up with the best idea. They just might not know what to do with it. He always says, I don't mind putting it down and having an argument. It's an argument amongst friends, and I forget who said that, but it's he then would say, but I am going to win a lot of the arguments because I've been arguing longer than you have. But I always found there was a great equality in all of our discussions, that you could sit with them. And actually, Nick wasn't involved in everything either. It was different partners doing things, and I was always given a great chance by Andrew Wally, who's now the chairman, who was an associate at the time. But they used to give you great opportunities. They would always give you the opportunity. They'd always kind of back you. So I think that's really, it was kind of why I stayed, and then upholding that legacy as being part of what I'm doing now, is to make sure that younger architects get those chances. They get chances to, come up with ideas. We're very big on origination in projects and trying to move up the chain, and not just kind of waiting at the letterbox for a tender invitation. Actually go and chase and generate our own projects now. So we try and get those that are good at that, in the position where they can use those skills, because actually I think what defines, say, a partner or an owner is the ability to win work. And that can be through competition, through relationship, through whatever. But I think that's the differentiator. So yeah, it's really been, I think it's the equality of it, and it's always been a really fun place. I've always really enjoyed it. It's always had great people, and I think that is really because I think people feel they've got the opportunity to kind of speak up. They're not just in some sort of monastic tutelage where they're sort of going around waiting for, whoever the big pen to kind of float in and completely. Kind of pass down these kind of ideas as missives, which is just nonsense. Architecture is not created that way. So I think that's what makes us different.
I think that leads on to another question that I was thinking about, with obviously you previously being a managing partner of the London office, and doing my research, the sort of voting system of the partnering and how you became sort of global head partner sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it does sort of come across as quite a open, the idea that a part one can walk in and have an understanding of how they may end up in that sort of, more senior position, and having that sort of, the clarity and the sort of no glass ceiling type attitude. Is that something you kind of imbue within the practice? Yeah,
you've got to live it. I mean, I think one of the big changes we made, and it was a number of years ago now, it'd be 10 or 15 years ago, was that roles like the managing partner or the group managing partner are roles, and if you move an architect into a business role only, what do they do after that? They've got nowhere to go. So what we always said was, no, you're an architect, but you're a role. So I've still got projects. I'm doing a lot of West Metro projects and some Sydney Airport and other things, and we actually won a really big competition for Nugatti station in Budapest, which got cancelled because of the war. But we were doing, I'm still doing those things, but it's a role, and we do it on a kind of like the presidential thing. It's 3-year term. You can never do more than 2 terms, and I just think it sort of keeps it fresh. That, it's not, you've been asked by your fellow partners, your fellow owners, to take on the responsibility. You take on the responsibility, and then you hand it to someone else afterwards. And certainly when I was the London managing partner, I then handed it on to Kirsten Lees and supported her into the role. But then I went back to projects, and it's actually, you don't lose. I think you don't lose connection with the market. So if you're making business decisions, you're still connected to the market. You're still connected to winning projects and resourcing and all that stuff. You're not kind of hovering somewhere above it. So I think you've got to have that connection. So I think it's a real benefit for us, I think.
It's a fascinating approach, because it's something that, I've experienced in my own career. You being promoted to a certain position, you're trained to be an architect, and then someone says, you now manage this many people, or you're an associate or an associate partner or whatever. You don't necessarily get that training in the same way.
Oh, you've got no training. Yeah, I think there could be the Peter Principle, that you could be promoted into incompetence, so it's kind of, so I think you don't know whether someone's going to be good at it. But the other thing that I always thought was that at some point in the future, you're going to be sitting around the table, and most of the people will have held that role at some point, so they will all have a great understanding of the responsibility that comes with it. Because there's elements of it that aren't particularly glamorous, but I think I'm a naturally decisive person, so I find it quite easy. A lot of architects, I think, sometimes shy away from those things and those decisions. But I've learned in business, making a decision is the most important thing, even if it's the wrong decision. As long as you've got the humility to, if it turns out to be the wrong decision, to change your mind, then you can change your mind. There's no rules against it. You don't lose face and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think it's good, but I do think it's a strength of the business.
So, you starting 29, 30 odd years ago, now as group managing partner. What is that group managing partner role, and how does that sort of work with, I suppose, with Grimshaw being such a global practice now? Offices in 8 offices in different locations across the world. You being based in Sydney, previously being in London. How does that sort of physically come together? Your role and also the sort of autonomy of those different offices.
Well, I think if you talk about the offices, I think we've got a unique approach to it. All the other practices that I know are versions of FIFO, like fly in, fly out. They've got a headquartered model. Some of them have 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4 people. There's quite a few in Sydney, the British practices, McCaslin, but they're tiny outfits. We have a much more meaningful connection with the cities. We've got 65 people in Sydney. There's about 50 odd in Melbourne. They're proper local studios. Who are connected to the market. Our fees are pegged to the local market. They're not. The internationalness comes for free, effectively. If you want to know about how we're building metros or aviation or lessons learned from things abroad, then we can bring that. But if you don't, we don't. So I think it is a unique offer. Because each of the studios are really connected to the city and the local market. So that's great. In my job, it's a lot of conversations. So my role is I'm responsible for chairing the board, the global board, which we've just changed to have regional representatives. So I'm also the regional managing partner for Australia as well as the group managing partner, just to keep the numbers down. And we've got North America, Europe, and then Middle East, which is we look on it as an opportunity region. So we've got 20 people there who are working away and do some of the work, but generally they're basically helping the other studios run projects into there. So it's kind of they're passed out. Not very many get passed to Australia. A lot more get passed to the UK or Europe and North America, just because of sort of time differences and things like that. But for me, it's just a structured set of meetings that I meet. I meet the chairman once a week. We have a global board every other week. It's always early morning for me. It's late for UK, so UK get a bum steer. Right. But I prefer to do things in the morning. It's always good for America. It's in the middle of the day, and it's really going through the financials and making strategic decisions about that. I've got a separate meeting that does all the operational departments. So IT, marketing, does the sustainability. There's all sorts of behind the scenes stuff, really important things, and there are really important members of our company who are non-architectural who need to be looked after and have got some good ideas about operational side. And then we then try and put strategies together for 5-year business plans and all that sort of stuff. But so that really gets done in the mornings, and then I do Sydney stuff during the day. Run projects, design reviews, just normal architectural stuff. I'm supposed to be 50-50, but I always think it's like 200%. I'm doing 2 jobs, but it seems to work fine, and no complaints from the partners yet.
I think that's the thing. I'm just thinking in my head, you must have to have a lot of sort of rigor in determining time split between those things and not letting one eat the other, sort of thing. Yeah,
I'm very good at partitioning stuff, but also it's there are some tasks which they would expand to fit the time available, so you've got to be quite disciplined. So that's why I think I've become very. It's not quick decisions, because that implies they're not thoughtful. But doing the necessary consultation with partners and the chairman and other people, and then making a very clear decision and communicating that clearly. And moving on to the next one, because there's always another one, and not wasting time. Procrastination is the enemy in all of that. So I don't know whether it's my Yorkshireness or I'm predisposed to make a very sort of quick decision and on to the next one.
And in that time period, I keep mentioning the 29 years, but
Yeah.
in that time period, did you ever sort of see yourself in this position? Is it a natural? I mean, maybe it probably didn't exist that when you started, but is it a natural progression for you to make sort of thing, and you've seen your career build to this position and fill into those natural skills that you have, or is it something that you've kind of gone for and kind of built upon as you go?
It's a great question. I no, it wasn't ambition at all. I mean, I thought I could become a director at the company. I think I'm naturally ambitious. My fellow partners will scoff by me saying that when I first joined, but I did genuinely think that. You've got to back yourself. I was confident about that and confident about having ideas, and I always thought I was good with people, so I could, be good with clients and therefore win work, which is a differentiator. So I was really, I really thought that. But in terms of being able to do this job, it was kind of, firstly, I think you're asked to do it. Like your fellow partners show the faith in you, but by asking you, I think it's something a bit grubby about you trying to become it. I don't think it should be an ambition. It should be it's a trust, and the way we've arranged it is that it's a role you're given, and then you walk away from it. So there's not, the reward is making sure the business is makes the right decisions at that time. I progressively thought I could do it. As I was lucky enough to do some big projects, and as I managed bigger teams, it's not such a big step from managing big teams to managing a studio.
Sure.
You kind of you understand the those things. My A levels was pretty good at economics. I think I always had a reasonable business mind. And business is actually really is easy. It's just revenue and cost really. So if I've got very overly simplistic kind of thought about it, and so I didn't think about it. It wasn't ambition, but latterly it was. And the chairman asked me to do this particular role, and it was just at the time that Lindsay and I were thinking about moving to Australia. So I made one contingent on the other.
just based on that, moving to Australia at this point in your career, and obviously Grimshaw already had a presence in Australia for you to kind of to sit into. How was that process from working for a long period of your career in London, leading the London office? Did you have much contact with Australia beforehand, and how have you then made a presence and reputation and gained contacts and things like that in a very sort of different world? And I suppose is it different? Is it more of the same? And what are those kind of do they make architecture slightly different there?
Sorry. There's a lot of questions in there. You may have to remind me of some, but in terms of moving, I just got to the end of being in London. To be honest, we'd just been nominated for the Sterling Prize with London Bridge, which I thought we should have won. I still think we should have won, but zeitgeist and Bloomberg won the year before, so a giant project in the centre of London was never going to win again. There's an end there, and I just wanted a different challenge. I wanted to work in a smaller studio actually, and have I remember. There were 30 people in the entire company when I joined, and I wanted to sort of feel that again. My connection with Australia goes back to the very beginning. I mean, I did the bid with Keith Brewis and the design work on Southern Cross Station, which set up our office in Melbourne and started our presence in Australia. And I'd more or less been back every year since to either for work or just to visit, because I like to visit. A lot of my friends had transferred from our office there, and I liked Australia, so it maybe in a way it was always going to happen. And then, but it was it was Lindsay's choice. Lindsay wanted to move, and I was up for a move. I thought to myself, I'm actually going to go to America. So the way that I'd kind of had it out in my mind before I met Lindsay, and then this kind of came out, and then it was just like I say, it was just exactly the same time that the chairman, they were looking at Vincent Chang, who was the old group managing partner, was stepping down. He got to the end of his term, so that they wanted me to do it, and there was a an established business there, and our business there does a lot of metro and rail and aviation, which is the three things that I've got more skill in, I guess, or I've more experience in. So I could slot in there. There's a lot of Brits there. There's a lot of engineering firms and people that I know. So it wasn't entirely new. It is different. It's your connection to market is a bit like it was at the start at Grimshaw. There's a bit more of a closer connection.
Right.
In London, it's become, there's a kind of veil which is of the tendering and other process. You're very, because of fairness or something, you can't touch it. You're separate from it, and it's quite difficult. It's also very, very regimented. It's gone are the days where, I haven't done a school, but I can illustrate. I can maybe do a turn to a school because I go, well, what are the last 5 skills have you done? What is the last 5? So you can't. So young practices can't break into that sort of stuff. So it's impossible. Especially what we do, transport. So actually, we do partner with younger practices, and I think HS2 and others have been quite good at pushing that. I think it's a good idea. But anyway, you're separate from it. Whereas in Australia, in Sydney, you're close to it. You can go and meet clients. You can go and actually meet ministers. You can go and meet. They'll come to your office and chat to you. And I think that's is actually a much better way because you understand clients better.
Completely.
So I think I've managed to establish. I've been there nearly 5 years. Established some good connections. I was being supported into it by my fellow partner there, Michael, who's been with us for like 10 odd years, and he's very connected to the developer market. All the studios have got their own site character and their own things that they do. We're probably much more connected in Sydney to developer clients and workplace, resi, those kind of developments than we are anywhere else in the world. We probably don't have hardly any of that in London, but we have lots of that in Sydney. So each place has its own connection to market because the markets are different.
And does that, with the studios being able to go, take advantage of those different connections in different locations, it morphs your strategy in different locations, and you go with those opportunities, I suppose. Yeah,
it is different. It's different in different places, but we also get kind of larger, what we call significant bids, and those significant bids have to go up to the board to get agreement for. If they involve more than one studio, or some of the fees are going to be more than sort of 30% of fees in any one year, or it's going to be X number of people are going to work on it. So because we've got to kind of strategize that, or it's going to cost a lot. Sure. It's usually aviation or metro projects, but yeah, you can kind of go for anything you want. And the thing for me has been great is I'm now, I'm bidding a high school, I'm bidding, we've got some residential stuff, we've got a lot of industrial. So I've been able to do lots of things that I was put in my box here. I was firmly in the rail kind of aviation box, and you could, and also you had other partners who were doing other things who, they've got their connection. So it was very difficult for me to have a diverse influence on projects. So by moving, I felt that I could.
Yeah, I think that's positive. In terms of, obviously young people are coming into the profession, and particularly coming into sectors like rail and aviation and things like that. These are monster projects that take a long time, just the competitions to take it forward and things like that. They could be a large portion of your career. How do you kind of encourage people to, stay passionate about those projects for that period of time? And I think something that I've experienced in lots of young people that I speak to is like, the actual process of architecture is quite slow. You will put a lot of time and effort into something, and a lot of times it will pause, or it will take a long time just to, move forward, sort of thing. And particularly with, like I say, those sectors being of such scale.
Yeah, architecture is a slow profession, so I think that people's expectations should be calibrated correctly. It does take a long time. I think big projects like that. We had Neil McClements, who we won the Stirling for the Elizabeth line, and he was giving a keynote in Sydney last week, and he then gave that again to our office, it's 13 years on that project. I think I did the bid with him. He wasn't even a partner, I don't think, when we started that project. But there've been lots of people on that job, and some of them are now in Sydney. And I think to young people, it's always in stages. The design bit's in stages, the development's in stages. On London Bridge, I thought we had a good strategy. There was myself, there was a principal, there was an associate principal on it, and we kind of strategized. We said, right, I'll run the project now. When it goes onto site, the principal runs it, and then you'll run it for a year and a bit, and then you'll come back to the office and you'll hand it over to this person. And so we had a strategy kind of laid out over the life of the project on site, and people sort of cycled in and cycled out out of it. And I think that project leaders and sometimes are reluctant to do that because they're like, they hold all the knowledge. It's like they don't, and knowledge can be passed on. Professionals can pick things up. I guess you can't hand over the relationships, I guess, but you can plan for it. And I think you've just got to be active in it. I think some leaders are just lazy. It's keep it as it is, and I think people can stagnate or they can get bored and they want to find a new challenge. It's up to us to recognise the abilities in people and then place them in the right place. Because, as you'll know, when you're designing a project and building a project, there are different skills, and actually being a generalist, being able to design, do the commercials, manage on site, details, it's actually fairly rare. I think to find generalists, we've got quite a few in our. Usually partners tend to be generalists, but there are other people are in the business. So you do need to have all of those skills and experience of all of that. So I think breaking it. Sorry, a long answer to your question is break it down, make it fun and interesting. And it's kind of important. For me, I'm able to go around these public buildings that we do and get great joy from walking around Paddington or going to London Bridge and think that, I've had a handle in this. It's not alongside lots of other people. I'm not saying I did this. I've contributed to the Grimshaw team who did it, and there's a great sense of pride with that. And yeah, it's 8 years of your life, or nearly 10. But like I say, we're cycling people in and out, and so I think that's how you do it. But if you want to change cities, you've got to be in it for the long haul. So you've got to understand that. But I imagine it is quite daunting if you're younger and looking at it. But it's something to be embraced, not run away from.
Just with those, you mentioned London Bridge, which was up for the Sterling, and then the Elizabeth line, which won it. What is the impact of, an office? Well, particularly, I suppose, a sector. There was a lot of sort of applaud to the Elizabeth line for, a sector like rail, being up there with the Sterling and winning it and things like that. And what is the impact of that on, I suppose, on an office generally? The power of such a sort of prestigious award.
I think it was very well deserved. I think it's a complete work. From the industrial design, everything it's a fantastic project and well deserved. For us, it was nice for Nick because Nick had he'd had the disappointment of Eden, and then we'd had the disappointment of Bilmer, and we'd had the disappointment of London Bridge. So it was nice to win it finally. So everyone felt a kind of there was a collective glow around the world, and we all raised glasses. So that's great. How much it's going to affect our business? I mean, again, to be controversial, I don't think it's going to affect it at all. It's like we've won a prize for a metro, and it's like everyone knows we can do metro. Yeah. So it's not like I think we're one of the best in the world at doing any transportation scheme, but I think that is known anyway. So it's a kind of affirmation. I don't think it's going to change. I don't think it'll change our business. That's my view. But it's great. It's great. And why you win? It's zeitgeist. It's not. I don't think the best building wins. I think that because the Eden project didn't win. The Eden project was by far and away the best building that year. It was politics and whatever's been talked about at that particular time. It was the jurors. So. And that's not sour grapes, by the way. That's them's the facts. I don't, because also I think it's really difficult for the jury to, reconcile, some back-to-back housing in East Anglia with a station in central London.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Yeah.
Super, super hard. So I think it's difficult. So I remember Neil he was about to go through his process, and of course I'd gone through the process a few years earlier, and he was like, "Oh, got any advice? What can we do?" And I just said, "Just enjoy it, and it doesn't matter whether we win or lose. Who cares? Really, just enjoy it because it's nice. You're in the limelight. You get to, a project becomes talked about. It's fantastic. Whether you win or lose or not, it's who knows. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to calibrate or judge across all of these varied projects, and it depends on the juror, and sometimes the juries are good, and sometimes you think, how on earth have these people got on a jury? So, I'm not that bothered. And I think he took great solace in that and just kind of enjoyed it, as I did. I mean, I just I had a right old laugh doing it. I thought it was really funny. And I had some good things. My best memory from that whole thing was we were in Sheffield. They do like a thing up in the north, and you give a presentation. And they, we all presented, and they then went. They did that. Who do you think is going to win? Like a difficult question. And so of course everybody went, oh well, they're all very good. They're all worthy winners. There's some fantastic projects here, and we just really went along the line. It got to me. And I said, I think Annalise is going to win. And they went, what do you mean? And I was like, well, that we want to do regional housing's on the agenda. The president of the RIBA is currently, he runs a housing practice. It's like, guys, we've got, there's the thing about gender equality, and Annalise is a strong leader of that. But it ticks all the boxes that it's going to win. And so they were all sort of, I thought it was great fun. It was very mischievous of me. Yeah. And as you probably know, I put a bet on her to win, and my only regret was I only put £10 and not £1,000 on it at 11-1. Yeah.
Brilliant.
and it's great, and it's a great scheme. It's a lovely scheme. I don't want anybody to think the sour grapes. It's a great scheme, and it's a great that they won. Fantastic for their business. I think it was transformative, and really elevated them. And they've gone on to do brilliant work in Sheffield on this the Park Road housing and all of that. Fantastic, but that whole process is just who knows.
Of course. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was your passion for film. So I know that you did an MA in film earlier in your career, and I know, looking at the website, Grimshaw have sort of gone fully into creating films about your work, and I know the film that you're involved in sort of celebrating Nick's life and career. How important to you is it having a passion, like that kind of sits outside, if not alongside, architecture? And I suppose what a joy it is to try and, have that to bring into your career with your practice now.
Yeah, I love the film. Has always been really important to me. My mum used to take me down the ABC cinema. I was a bit of a nightmare child, so she used to drop me off on a Saturday while she was doing the shopping. And the ABC and give me some money. I used to go and see the Children's Film Foundation films, and they do. There was a B feature. I used to sit in there. Literally, I was the kid. Kind of wide-eyed watching films. I still to this day I watch anything. And why I got the MA was because I was London managing partner at the time, and I felt like my brain was turning to mush, and I just wanted to become. I wanted to become a better writer. I just wanted to try and, just have some structured learning. And the other thing was as well, I wanted to walk into a room where I wasn't expected to talk first, because when you're a London managing partner, everyone sits down and they look at you and go, right, okay, today's agenda is blah blah. So I just wanted to be able to sit at the back of the room and have someone else talk to me, and structure my learning, because I was really interested in Korean film, which has become very very popular and big with Parasite and all that. But I loved it, and I loved the language of film, and I love everything about it, from the gossip to everything. So and I think it's a really effective way of getting complicated stories across. I think film generally has gone a bit weird recently because of digital and improv, and films are 2 and 3 hours long. They're rubbish. Like Brutalist is just not a good film, and should never have won the Oscar. But I love that storytelling. I love the kind of the ability to do something. Get so much information across, either through visuals and or speech. And so what happened was, I decided to make 2 films. So I made a film at Pulkovo and a film in Reading. And I was, key grip, best boy. I did all the editing and the music. We did everything. And it's a bit shonky, but I kind of did it and to show Nick. And I said, Nick, this is how we should get the stories, some of the stories about our projects out. Hi, it's November 2012 and we're here in St Petersburg at the new Pulkovo International Airport. This is a project we won in 2007 for a new combined domestic and international terminal designed for 17 million passengers a year. The building's being constructed behind me. This is the first phase of the project for 12 million passengers a year and should be finished in December 2013. And we could become a leader, and we've done 40 or 50 films now, and we have 2 or 3 a year. We've still got a programme. I'm still producer, not in that I produce them, but I'm a kind of producer. And I think they're really, really valuable. The issue we have is that, the architects get in there, the project leaders, they want to tell the whole story. And it's like, you should only be telling part of the story or the bit that's most interesting and important. And so, the edits kind of go out to 6-7 minutes. Nobody cares, It's got to be 2.5, 3 minutes. It's like 2.5 hour films don't interest me. 90-minute films interest me because it's, there's obviously discipline gone into it. So I think it's a really great thing that we do. We're continuing to do it. There's an archival legacy aspect as well, because we can get people who've been in the done the project. Some of them are still with us, some of them are not. It's good we've gone back through some of the older projects to do those as well and revisit them. So I think it's a great resource. I don't think we've ever made enough of it on our socials, and I think we've been typically kind of Grimshaw and kind of sort of hidden our light under the bushel about that. But I think we'll continue to make them. We're just thinking about the ones we're going to make in the future, and we want to do the Parramatta Pool and a couple of the other projects Martin Place. So we're thinking about the ones in future. But I really like. We've got a filmmaker, Ned Williams, who's done a lot of the majority of them, and I've got a great relationship with Ned because it's. As a producer, I don't go, time code, 12, so take this out. I'm like a lot of architects do. They try and take over. I sort of say, well, it's a bit too long. I don't like the beginning. I think we should start like this and just give some general thing. And then he's the filmmaker, so he's then going to do it. So I think it's been great for us. But for me personally, it's really important to have something else. It is kind of architecture adjacent. And it's helped, even with our CGIs now and our animations. I've been encouraging them to use dolly shots and to use, other things.
Appreciation of that.
Because we've all got filmic language. I don't think we understand. We watch so much visual media that we've been schooled in it. So this kind of GoPro walking around a building nonsense, which like some sort of video game. It's like nobody wants to experience. You're selling a building because that's what we're doing. We're selling an idea or an experience or a feeling. Then you can use that filmic language. So I think it's super important to me, and I do take little shots and notes and things with films and think, that'll be really good for that project or this project. And so I think it's been a good real benefit to us. And I really did enjoy doing Some Kind of Joy, which is the film kind of really about Nick, which I did enjoy putting that together. We had a filmmaker do it, but I enjoyed being involved in that. That was tremendous. And we had a proper premiere at at a cinema just by Piccadilly Circus. Okay. It was fantastic.
It was really quite anarchic.
This is indeed the age of change.
It was a whole new way of thinking, cross between mechanical engineering, sculpture, and rocket science.
It was almost a fetish of beautiful, gleaming industrial objects.
A building like this, next to Regent's Park, over my dead body, he said.
I think there's a really nice parallel that I've sort of like been listening to with your sort of idea around sort of succinct communication, and like you just sort of mentioned about the 3-hour film versus the 90-minute disciplined movie, and what you were saying earlier about in your sort of leadership style of that succinct communication and things, and I think I suppose it's a thing that architects struggle with is determined choice communication. You speak to any young architect and they'll tell you 100 problems without sort of giving you the solution sort of thing. How important do you think having that sort of clear communication is and has been in your career?
Well, I do think it's incredibly important, and I think that if you take a step back, fundamentally what architects do is they take complicated things and they make them simple. Is what they do. They take a bunch of effects, parameters, things, and make it simple, and then communicate that simply, or you should be communicating that simply. Sorry. What they then do is they wrap it in what I call archi-bollocks. They just talk in this kind of weird language that only architects do, and it's self-aggrandizement and pomposity and pretentiousness, and it turns me cold. And I think why can't we carry on speaking very, very clearly about it, because surely we'd have much more effective communication with the users who don't use architectural language, with clients, developers, engineers, collaborators like that, who would then respect us a bit more. I think we harm ourselves. But I think in terms of the communication, I think also the problem architects have is they want to show how clever they are. It's a difficult job, and I've managed to balance all these conflicting things, and now I'm going to show you how to do it. But it was like, it's like a magician telling you how he's done the trick straight after he's done the trick. I always think it's like, shh, just leave it as it is. The simple communication. The building's about this, and leave it at that. But they always seem to want to write like a 5,000 word essay about it. I think it's pointless.
I think that is a wonderful thing about, when you particularly think about Grimshaw and the types of projects that you do, particularly the public ones, the different people moving through those spaces, the hundreds of thousands, millions of people, going through those large projects, all interpreting it in their own, sort of way and stuff. It is, the kind of power of architecture of that sort of thing. It is experienced by so many people, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's, it's the reason why we did that film, and it was called Some Kind of Joy, because it's Nick's phrase. He said, we want people to use it and for it to be easy to use, but also we want to give them some kind of joy when they're going through it. And I think that some of the small choices we make, be it at London Bridge, we've got the timber, and there's just there's that kind of humanising element and the warmness, and something that's maybe a little bit unusual in spaces like that, because they can be quite cavernous and maybe a bit hostile. Or Fulton Centre with the light coming down at that particular part, it's all sort of dark and small. That's a way. So to go in there, it's just this generous, large, light-filled space. It's quite unusual, and people can enjoy that on their daily commute. It might just give them a bit of a smile. So I think it's those moments that we all work for. I came in on the Elizabeth line from Heathrow on Friday when I was travelling in, and it brought a smile to my face. It was just kind of easy, joyous kind of experience, and I know what's happened behind the Wizard of Oz curtain. I know what's happened, but it just put simply, it just felt kind of luxuriant. It felt sort of spacious and just really beautifully done, and I was really proud of what we've done, and the fact that our business can do it, because I think only we can do things like that, and that's what I think anyway.
Perfect. Just to wrap up your career, obviously, with Grimshaw starting.
You're wrapping up my career?
Yeah, we're wrapping. It's done. Sorry, it's over.
No,
in terms of reflecting, and it's something I always kind of ask the guests, and obviously you don't normally spend much time sort of navel gazing and reflecting on your own career, and it's only these kind of opportunities that allow it. What do you think people could take away from our conversation and your career, that you've kind of some of the key things for probably young people coming into the profession? What are those kind of key skills or key stories you can think of?
Well, I think I was determined to become an architect. I thought it matched my skills. I wanted to work for Grimshaw, so I set out a plan in terms of the work that I got. So my CV was built in the right way. I had a really good work ethic. So, you know, my dad always used to say, you know, let no one outwork you. You know, you can be as clever as you want, but let no one outwork you. And I'm not advocating long hours, by the way, because I don't work long hours. I like to, you know, work the normal hour time but really work super effectively. But don't let anyone outwork you. And then I think find something you really enjoy doing and surround yourself with great people, or align yourself with the great people who are fun and you know, share their experiences and their stories. Because I've been super lucky at Grimshaw with all of the people I've worked with or worked for, who've always been super generous with their time, and they've been really, you know, influential. But I've really enjoyed it. I feel incredibly lucky, and I'm looking forward to, you know, many more years of doing projects and completing some amazing spaces around the world. I haven't actually built anything in Sydney yet, so that's an ambition. And yeah, I don't know. I think also be decisive and don't procrastinate. You know, you don't have to pay a price. I think there's too much set on decisions. You know, like I think it starts at college for students, and there's a pressure to have an idea or the idea. When I do design reviews, as an example, like people, you know, they like sit up and do design reviews for hours on end. I don't do that with my team. It's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, and we go, okay, let's go. Is this where we're going to go? Then they go away and test it and come back. So I'd rather have 5-10-minute conversations, 15-minute conversations as a review than sit around for an hour, you know, sort of, you know, everyone speaking and, you know, self-aggrandizing.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so I think it's being, and architecture is, well, the other thing is, I'm not sure architecture is an art. I think it's a way of operating, but which involves creativity and ideas and great thoughts and some philosophizing and you know, social values and all of that stuff. But it's a method of working, and you shouldn't think that it's an art, because I don't know much art that you do with, you know, 70, 80 other people and other disciplines. You're reliant upon other disciplines going into them, so it's a really different thing. So I don't know. Sorry, hopefully you can pick the peanuts from the poo. Definitely. There.
Perfect. So thank you so much for joining me, and yeah.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope people find it enjoyable. Thank you, Margaret.
Brilliant.
Thank you. You know, it's one of my bugbears is bloody, you know, like tutors at architecture school who've just been students.
Yeah.
So what the fuck are you? What do you know? Yeah. Like you've come out of a unit.
You're just creating more of you.
Yeah,
really.
No, exactly. It's just sort of, it's not. You know, what can you teach them? You've not learned anything. And then the people who should be, I guess, like me, we got too busy. Yeah. Like you can't go do it. Well, I am tutoring people, but they work for me.
Yeah.
And you know, you try and give them opportunities, but it's stuff like that. Just sort of why we had some good tutors at Dundee, you know, older guys and women who were, you know, quite experienced. But it was a bit more of a technical school than a sort of crazy, wacky kind of like a sort of Bartlett or anything like that. It was a high-tech school as well, so they either did vernacular or they did high-tech. Okay. Yeah, so which suited me down to the ground, so that's kind of what I wanted to do. We're quite good on the challenge and like, you know, strategically, do you know, what are your higher order? What problem are you actually trying to solve here? You know, take the practicalities of it. What are you actually trying to solve? What do you want to do? It's okay, right? And then so we've become quite skilled in, you know, getting them to ask the right questions, you know, to you know, because it's the architecture bit comes later. I mean, that's the problem with a lot of architects is they come and they've already got an idea, and then they spend all of their time trying to shove the program into the idea that they've had, which was wrong anyway, wrong from the start. It's like, you know, it's like the architecture bit comes so much later, and surely it should respond to the parameters. It should respond to the things you're trying to do. But a lot of architects come with a, you know, preconceived idea. Normally, fashioned by their own limitations, I would say. There's a thing you didn't ask. I generally hate architects. That's my sort of thing. That's my they're all pretentious.
I was getting that vibe.
The more you look like an architect, the less good you are, in my opinion.
So it's all black, didn't
You've got to be. No. But you know that people are coming. They're swan in, and they've got the big glasses and all that stuff. And you just think you are. It's literally like a middle-aged man buying a sports car. You know, it's just, you're making up for something there, my friend. You know, like all the best architects I know are just normal-looking people. So there's this, but no, there are. Not all architects. I mean, I sort of there are good. You know, the people who work for us are good. Just it's. Architecture is normal. You're not a master of the universe. You're, like you say, you're in the middle. You're in the middle, and your job is to bring everything together. So it's and that's why architects can do it until they're 80 or 90 years old, because it's actually quite it's a collaborative thing. It doesn't it doesn't not on your own shoulders. The one people I've seen wear themselves out have been those who are just despots. It's all through me. It's all through the eye beneath.